If there ever was a homeowner complaint, it's probably about cramped closets. It turns out that key measurements offer the best clue. In working with hundreds of clients over several decades, I've narrowed the answers to a handful of critical dimensions and closet types to solve the challenge. Aligning closet shapes along identical dimensions makes the layout clean and straightforward. Once you know this, it's far easier to achieve a better design. Stay tuned to discover crucial dimensions and how you can end up with ample closet space even in a modest house. And you'll learn about the common error ruining walk-in closets and what to do about it. To begin, let's take a look at a 1,600 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath house that has wall closets off of the bedroom, and there is a walk-in closet off of the master, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. But for right now, the first thing I want to focus on is zooming in on these secondary bedrooms. Each bedroom, in this case, has a closet that is a wall closet. Now, a wall closet just means it's a closet that opens up to the room with a wide opening, or usually a wide opening because they're usually long or long enough to hold at least a child's bedroom clothing, which is, a minimum of 5 feet, I would say. And then a lot of times they're anywhere between 6 feet to 8 feet, up to 10 feet long. Not really ever more than 10 feet for a wall closet. But you can see in this case what we have here is on bedroom 2 and bedroom 3, we have a wall closet for each space. So we'll take a look here a little bit closer, and you can see how these are configured. They have a double hanging space in addition to a long hanging space, so you have an option of both in each of these closets. And in particular on bedroom 3, the closet is a little bit longer. It has a length of 91.5 inches, which is 7.5 feet about, and of course it's 24 inches deep. Now, the 24-inch depth is finish to finish. So if you're doing stud to stud and you have half-inch drywall, then that's 25 inches that you're allowing to frame and then put on the drywall. Some architects like to give it just a little bit more space, up to 26 inches. That's okay if you have the space to play with, but a lot of times you're limited on your square footage and you want to squeeze everything you can out of maximizing your space in your rooms. So I like to keep them at 24 inches deep for a wall closet. Now, you'll notice that we have a bifold door shown here. That bifold door is a total of 72 inches wide by 80 inches tall, which is the standard height for a typical doorway in a U.S. home. That 72 inches has 4 panels of louvered doors. Those can bifold and swing all the way open. I tend to like to show these more than a sliding closet door, which is an option, or 2 double doors which open out, because when you open the 2 bifolds, you can get a really good view into that closet. And that's really important, I think. If you can see everything very clearly, the natural light from the room goes in, and I just recommend that if you're going to do a wall closet. Now, a lot of times you do see the sliding doors. They can be mirrored. Some people like that. As for having doors on them, if this were 2 3-foot doors, those 3-foot doors would be pretty big swinging into the room. So you probably wouldn't want to do that in this case. So I'd say either sliding doors or a bifold door here. Now, we're going to take a look at this room in a little bit more of a specific point that I want to make. I've labeled above the door here, door to interior wall, less than 12 inches. So what I'm saying there is that the wall space in the interior of the closet, you never want to make more than 12 inches beyond that door. Because if you do, whatever gets put in that closet that's back in that space, if it gets too far deep back in there, beyond 12 inches, it's very difficult to see. The daylight doesn't get to it. You can be putting things in the closet and sort of losing them because they get pushed too far back into a corner that you can't really see, and you don't remember where you put it. You can't see it that well, especially if you pack your closets, and most people do. So I just want to point that out too. And now I'm going to come back here to this second bedroom, or bedroom number 2, and this closet is slightly shorter. It's pretty much the same arrangement as the other one, but we're less another 10 inches or so here, or 12 inches, I guess. And we have a similar configuration. It's pretty much the same kind of thing. I'll go back to what I said a moment ago. If it's a child's bedroom and it's a small child, they need up to about 5 feet of wall closet. That's not very much. Now, you always have to keep in mind that children grow up, and as they grow up, they collect more stuff, like we all do. And I think having a closet that's at least 6 feet wide on a wall closet is pretty much kind of standard and a given. 8 feet if it's more of a luxury house, up to 10 feet if you really want to be extravagant about it. But, when you have a 10-foot wide closet, you're going to have an 8-foot wide closet door, and that door is going to be pretty large. You probably do a sliding panel with 2 4-foot pieces, or a sliding panel with 3 equal pieces as an option. So the other thing I want to show you here is we have a coat closet in this house off of the main gallery or hallway that we enter into, and that, again, is a hanging depth of 24 inches, which can hold the coats, and you can probably put a vacuum cleaner in this closet as well if you want to use it as some storage, and you have storage on a shelf above the rod. Also note that I have a 28-inch by 80-inch door here. It could be a 24-inch by 80-inch door, which would be fine, but 28 inches just kind of lets you see into the closet a little bit better. Also note that the coat closet is only 32 inches long. It's the 24-inch standard depth that I'm recommending. But the 32-inch length is pretty short for a closet, but in this case it can work just fine with this smaller house, and that's kind of what I had left over to work with as I was doing this. Now, I could have always made the closet next to it a little bit shorter if I wanted to have 36 inches inside this coat closet. You can adjust, especially when you line things up like this and laying them out, you can adjust them to just the right kind of size and space that you want to work with, or give it a little, take a little, depending on what your goals are for what you're going to be using the space. Also, I want to just point out, this is not a coat closet or a wardrobe closet, but I thought I would just point this out real quick. We have a linen closet. Now, I've made this linen closet 24 inches deep, but it's 48 inches long. So it's a good sized linen closet. What you would do is you would put an 18-inch, for example, an 18-inch deep shelving unit inside that closet to use for your linens. And here, I just want to point out that I've used a double door, 36 inches wide and 80 inches tall, to access this closet. What this does for you is those small doors are easy to open and they don't really get in the way like a larger door could. So that's why I sort of tend to do that. Now, double doors are going to cost more than a standard door or a regular door, or just a single door, of course. But it's something that you could consider if you're trying to make it look a little bit nicer and dress it up a bit. You will spend more, but I think that in the long run, somebody would appreciate not having to run into a 3-foot door that would swing out into this hallway that's in front of the bedroom, for example. So that takes care of the wall closet for the smaller wall closet in this case. And now we're going to take a look at walk-in closets. You can see this house has a walk-in closet off of the primary suite, which is 12 foot 10 inches long and 7 feet wide. Keep in mind that 7 feet. That's a really important dimension as we keep going with this. But what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go to a larger house and talk more about walk-in closets. Okay, as promised, here we have a much larger, about 2,800 square foot house that we're going to look at. And I want to point out that in this particular plan, what I've done here is all of the bedrooms have walk-in closets of one type or another. And I'm going to explain the different configurations that we have here. And the one thing that trips everybody up out there, it seems to be a common thing. So we'll talk about that here in just a minute. First, let's zoom into the bedroom wing of this house. And we have 3 bedrooms on this side. Each one of these is an ensuite. We will go to bedroom 2 first and take a look at this walk-in closet. Now, this walk-in closet is 5 feet deep and 7 feet wide. Now, the 7-foot width is what's really critical here. And I'll explain more of that in a minute. But if you have a walk-in closet, get that 7 feet in width to really make it work well. And then make it 5 feet deep as an average. You could go 4 feet. I wouldn't go less than that. But even if you do a 4 feet, you have to keep in mind that on both sides of you in a closet like this, in total, you'll have 8 linear feet of hanging space, which is a lot, especially for a smaller bedroom. So at 5 feet, we've got 10 feet of linear hanging space combined on both sides. But the most important thing here to remember is that we're talking about being able to go into this closet and move around and dress and undress. What we have here is a 28-inch wide by 80-inch tall door to go into this closet. I recommend also that you have your doors for walk-ins swing outward. Sometimes people make them swing inward. The problem with going inward is that closets can get pretty packed. And should something fall over or shift or come down in the closet accidentally, and you go to try to push open the door into the closet and there's stuff blocking the door, you've got quite a problem. So that's why I recommend making your doors open outward for a walk-in closet. The other thing here I want you to notice is that on the back wall, as you walk in, I've left that space for something that could be a tie rack, a belt rack, or you could do all sorts of different kinds of configurations back there. But you want something shallow on that back wall. And the reason is we want to be able to see the hanging space once we walk into that closet. We don't want something protruding out that makes a dark corner where something gets stuffed back into the corner and you can't really see it very well. And you'll notice that I have a long hanging space on the right-hand side and a double hanging space on this left-hand side. And of course, we're talking about making this a 24-inch deep hanging space, which is the standard hanging space that you usually have. And what that does in a 7-foot wide closet, if you have hanging space on both sides, you end up with a 3-foot path down the center of that closet to move around, put on your shirt, put on your sweater without bumping into things. You have enough room to do that if you have that 3-foot path down the center of that space. Very convenient, very nice, very sort of luxurious, if you want to put it that way, for a house. Usually needs a larger footprint to be able to host closets of that size. The other option here that we have on bedroom 1 is this other closet. Now, what I've done here is I've created a walk-in, but I've made it 5 feet square. That's 60 inches by 60 inches. It's a walk-in closet, but what you would want to do in this case is put your hanging space on one of the walls. Not on both, but on one. And we'll talk about the problem of having space on both walls here in a minute. But in this case, what I've done here, and you can see, is I have a double rod on this back wall as you enter. That way, when you open your door and you walk in, everything's right in front of you. If you put it on the side, which you could have, things are not in front of you. You have to turn and look. But I just find it would be easier to walk in and have it right in front of you. And then on your left, you have the tie rack, the belt rack, the accessory pegs that you can use for lots of different things. That's just an idea. There's lots of things that you could do there. You could have a shoe tree hanging off the wall, things like that. So the other thing here too, you'll notice that I have a 28-inch by 80-inch door going into that closet. Could be a 24-inch by 80-inch door. 24 inches is pretty narrow these days for most people. People are taller and a little bit bigger than they used to be. So the 28 inches makes that a little more comfortable. Now, I want to go back out here and we're going to go over to the master or the primary suite in this good size rambling ranch house and take a look here. Here we have, and this is similar to the floor plan I showed you previously, we have a 12'10" length and a 7-foot width on this walk-in closet, this big walk-in closet. And of course, I'm saying here again we have our 24-inch deep hanging space on two sides opposite each other. And keep that aisle down the center clear so we can move around and dress and undress. And in particular, in this case, I've also indicated a doorway, in this case a pocket door on this plan here, that has an access to a hallway that goes to a laundry room. I'm seeing this more where people like to have the master bedroom closet be really close to or right next to or open into a laundry room, because obviously your clothes are going to be in this spot and you're going to be wanting to get to the laundry room the shortest path that you can with your dirty clothes. Makes sense. And also, I want to point out, off of the primary bathroom here, you enter this big walk-in closet through another small double door, similar to what I showed in that other house, 36 inches wide by 80 inches tall. It's the smallish door, folds kind of out of the way, so if you leave it open, the big door is not in the way, it's just kind of sitting there and out of the way, and folds kind of nicely. It also looks kind of nice to have a double door over a single panel door sometimes. Again, I know I mentioned that it's more expensive to do that, but just kind of an architectural check mark that you could do if you wanted to. Also, you'll notice that I have a window in this closet. Now, this could be a little controversial. I tend to think this is a good idea, because how many times do you go into your closet, whether it's walk-in or otherwise, and you can't see a thing? You can't see the color rendition. If you have a window that's letting in natural daylight, and of course you want to keep that window with some sort of window covering over it to keep the direct sunlight out, because you don't want direct sunlight coming in and fading clothes. But a single window with a simple blind on it can take care of that. That just also gets you during the day when you go in that closet. Yes, you can turn on the light, but having some natural daylight just makes that space so much easier to work in, because you can see things better. You just have that extra natural light. You see the color rendition of your clothing. Don't confuse the navy blue with the black blazer, etc. So I think that's actually kind of a cool idea. I've done that several times for clients. I want to go down and take a look at this big closet, just kind of get a sense of what your space is like in a closet like this. I think this is pretty cool to have a design laid out this way, on the luxury side for sure. So more expensive, more detail, but in some of these larger homes, you would want to have something like this. Now, I think we're going to come back out here, and if there's anything else, I think we covered that pretty well. Let's go over to bedroom number 3. And here's the catcher. Let's go in and let's take a look at this closet. Now, I don't have this labeled, but this closet is about 8 feet wide, and it's about 5 feet deep. So we have that 7-foot width plus a little bit more to make that hanging space on either side. But what's happened here is we've put in a rod perpendicular to the rod on the left-hand side. What happens when you do that? This is what I see all over the place, all the time. And it's not a good idea. And here's why. Whatever is in that crossing rod is, you can see that way back there, those shirts that you want to grab, because the rod crosses, you can't pull them all the way down the rod because the other rod's in the way. I see this a lot. You'd be surprised. And then also, the clothing on the right-hand side is sort of blocking the view of the clothing that's back in that corner. It's awkward. It's just awkward. And I think that what I want to emphasize here most is that if you have a walk-in closet, make it 7 feet wide at least. And then you have a 3-foot aisle down the center. Put the hanging space on the two sides, on the two opposite sides in that 7-foot width. Don't try to put clothes into the corner, or design it so that you have, say for example, a 9-foot by 9-foot closet, and you just line three corners or 3 walls of the closet with hanging space because those two corners are going to be very awkward to get to and see. So this is just what I recommend. I just find this is a much better way to do this. And I think that I've actually had clients I've talked to about this, and they say, yeah, I never really thought about that before. So there you go. All right, then. So hopefully that was helpful to you. That's all about wardrobe closets. And you can see that when you have space, or when you're planning and laying out these floor plans, and you know you have these very specific dimensions to work with, then you can make the plans work out much more easily when you know you have these specific dimensions. You don't want to make the closet an extra 3 feet wide just because you have space left over. Somehow or another, that space should probably be in a room where it can be actually used. So really that takes care of the two types of closets that you can have in your average suburban house. Now, I do want to mention that there's something I like to call the glamour closet. And you'll see this on these reality shows where people go into these people's private homes and they live in these gigantic houses, and they walk in and they've got a closet that looks like something in a high-end clothing store on Fifth Avenue in New York. And there's like a bench in the center, there's a big table in the center, and all the jewelry's laid out on it. That's the glamour closet. That's a totally different thing. So that's not what we're talking about here. I'm just talking about the average house, the average closet, the average wall closet, the average walk-in closet. Watch this next episode you now see on your screen to learn about storage closets every home needs.